I'm a bad motherfucker.
Are the ones that they use. Who knows?
Hostages' families are protesting Netanyahu right now because, as you know, Netanyahu doesn't want the hostages back until they get all these people murdered. So they'll murder their own people just to make sure they kill all of them.
I think Netanyahu is going with the assumption that they'll build a statue to him after he's dead. And because the Palestinians are gone, they'll give him credit for that.
They're
so
going
it
to
doesn't
drag us
matter
into
if they
World War
hate him
III
now.
for this because this crime is too deep now.
Well, they're trying to. They're trying to.
His only chance is
we're gonna get to Iran later. I mean, they're trying to drag us in. Nisha?
Oh well, I'll do one more. One more. John Michael, my friends lived in Alphabet City behind Thompson Square Park in the 80s when they closed the park at night.
I remember that.
That was when you walked with multiple guys, not by yourself. However bad it is now is still way nicer.
Dude, I remember when it was a tent city in Tompkins Square Park full of junkies, and you still had that band shell there. That band shell looked like hell at night because you would see the flames flickering over the ceiling from all the crack addicts lighting up their pipes. You can't imagine.
Festive.
Yeah, it was festive. It was festive at Christmas until they cleared it out. Okay, so this, now having done this gig for a while, a couple of shows, I know which stories we cover are going to get me like comments for 2 weeks on both shows. I'm going to be getting this in Rumble Rants and Super Chats. So we're going to cover the minimum wage, which has just increased in California, and hopefully dispel some myths and create some worker solidarity. All right, so right here, strangely enough, right, while I'm actually in the state, California just increased its minimum wage to $25 an hour for fast food workers. The new law, a result of fast food worker strikes, will increase the minimum wage of workers at restaurants with more than 60 locations in California to $4 more than the state's regular minimum wage. So the regular minimum wage is $16 here. On April 1st, 2024, California's new $20 minimum wage for fast food workers went into effect. The wage hike will impact workers at about 3,000 fast food locations across the state and comes as a result of years of lobbying, protests, and strikes by the Fight for 15 and a union movement. Labor advocates have hailed the new law as an important step toward winning all workers a true living wage, while some business owners have complained that the new law will cost them too much and force them to lay off workers. This bill, which was signed into law by California Governor Gavin Newsom on September 28, 2023, raises the hourly minimum wage rate for many of the state's fast food workers, with some exceptions, to $20.
Yeah, Panera Bread.
It also established, it's like a bakery exception.
His friend from college owns Panera Bread.
There you go. It also, I was wondering, why is there a bakery exception? What the fuck?
Because he's corrupt.
That was why. Yeah, it was a corrupt thing. I think they took that out though. I think they.
According to this article, there's still this bakery exception.
It didn't count bagels. It was hilarious. It was like very specific to his one old buddy.
That's why I said, like, why bakeries? Okay. In any case, it also established a fast food council within the state's Department of Industrial Relations, which is made up of fast food workers, industry representatives, and government officials. The law targets fast food workers specifically because it is the direct result of labor actions in 2022, when thousands of fast food workers at hundreds of locations across California went on strike to demand the passage of the Fast Food Accountability and Standards Recovery Act, which would have raised the minimum wage and created a fast food council. It's interesting, man. It's almost like when you take labor action and cripple these companies, you actually manage to get changes. You get a lot more changes than you do breaking your ass in the snow for an old grifter like Bernie Sanders, right? They actually got higher wages. Well, the Senate parliamentarian said no. I'm sorry, guys. Send me more money.
This was the first time I ever heard in my life of a parliamentarian when they didn't.
I never heard of it either. I never heard of it either.
That's the sixth branch of government. You didn't know the parliamentarian.
That was like a fucking Dashiell Hammett novel, The Parliamentarian. After fast food industry owners pushed for a ballot referendum and filed a lawsuit to block enforcement of the law, AB 1228 arose as a negotiated compromise between labor and capital. California has more than 500,000 fast food workers who work at what's called limited service restaurants. 80% of those employees are people of color, and 2/3 of them are women. Far from being a, quote, summer job for teens, the typical fast food worker is a 26-year-old woman. See, this is something people who make these arguments have to remember. The old economy is gone, right? This is where people work now. They work at retail. They work at these fast food restaurants. These are the people who would have worked in factories at one time. And you know what happened with those factories? They had massive strikes in order to get the kinds of wages and benefits that eventually they got. Eventually, working in a factory became a middle-class kind of a job. You could raise a family. You could send your kids to college. Those jobs are gone. And now the people who would have had those jobs are working in these kinds of environments. So they have to recreate the labor movement. They have to go on strike to get what people in their position fought so hard for in industries that are now no longer here. These are the jobs people work today.
Russ, this has been a thing for a while, and it just make me real angry because it'd be on the one hand, the same people that I guess, you got to work for it, you got to work really hard and work can work. And then we go, okay, well, I got to work at this place. Well, it's a job for kids.
Right.
So all of a sudden, the respect of hard work goes right out the window.
Exactly. They're working.
And now you're Judge Snails. We're like, the world needs ditch diggers too, I guess.
Well, look, I'm going to get into it, man. But nothing bothers me more than working people attacking other working people for getting a living wage. That is, you're making yourself a peasant. You're making yourself a peasant when you talk like that. You know, when we look back at aristocracy, because of, you know, they really don't represent the peasantry in fiction, we think of the loyal aristocrats loyal to the kings. It wasn't the aristocrats who were loyal to the kings. When the kings got whacked, it was another aristocrat.
That's right.
The people who were loyal to the kings were the peasants. It's the peasant. Oh, the local lord. Oh, he's so good to us. That's what you're making yourself when you argue, oh, these burger flippers shouldn't be making us money. You're a fucking peasant. You're talking like a peasant when you start protecting the prerogatives of the ownership class in that way. Now, if you're rich making that argument, God bless you, man. Home Depot, I hear they're introducing a new moat kit. Maybe you should invest in it before they come for you. But for the rest of you, don't defend these people.
These same people look down. They look down on OnlyFans. If this chick was an OnlyFans,
we'll get more into where your money's actually going. It's not to these people. Despite the rapid rise in cost of living and inflation, the federal minimum wage has not been raised since 2009. So let's take a look at what the minimum wage should be. They're actually lowballing here. The minimum wage, if it had kept up with productivity, it would be $22.88 right now. It is still $7.25, the federal minimum wage.
I can't believe that, dude.
While most states have raised their own minimum wage rate since then, there are still 5 that haven't. Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee. And 2, Georgia and Wyoming, that have a minimum wage below $7.25. Below $7.25. Some fast food corporations have implied they will be forced to lay off workers or point to the new law as a reason to potentially raise product prices, thereby passing the cost of the increased wage onto the consumers.
Of course.
Now, I just want to interject here. I don't want to, stop the whole segment, but I just want to point out, first, all the media was complaining about how now a Big Mac and fries is $18. Mm-hmm. There was no wage increase.
That's right.
These are greedy motherfuckers. They will charge you what they think they can get. It has nothing to do with the wage increase. They were charging you $18 for a Big Mac meal before this. in states that don't have this. You see it all over the country in states that have not had a minimum wage increase. Has nothing to do with it.
They hire people just to figure out how to extra screw you and get away with it.
Right.
They have specialists they bring in just for that purpose.
And arguing they're gonna go to automation. They're doing that anyway. Have you walked into McDonald's lately? They have the screen there to order it. They were already doing that. They're gonna do that in any case.
Yes, they're always going to try to get as much as they can for as little cost as they can.
Exactly.
That is never going to stop, whether the minimum wage is $20 or whether it's $7. They are always going to do what they can to get the most for themselves and spend the least amount of money they can. And labor, they view as a cost. It is a cost. There was this guy, Scott Roderick, who owns, I think, 18 McDonald's restaurants in California, who says, well, you know, now because I don't want to lay people off, I'm going to have to forego a new HVAC system for one of my restaurants. I'm going to have to not trim the grass on the property as often. That's how they view workers, as grass on the lawn.
Right.
That's what you are to your boss if you are a worker. You are another expense that they want to keep as low as possible.
Right.
And if your wages go up, it means they're going to have to cut expenses elsewhere. You know what? Good. Your job as a laborer is to assert that you're worth more than the fucking grass on the lawn. That's your job. You owe it to yourself and your family to do that, not to be a simp for these franchise owners who show up 3 times a year at each restaurant and just sit back and watch the money come in.
Exactly. Multiple studies have shown that despite business owners' fears, raising the minimum wage actually benefits the economy. A recent study from the Roosevelt Institute on fast food industry wages found that employers are able to absorb the increased operating costs without raising prices or cutting jobs. Now here's the big takeaway. The only requirement is that they cut down on stock buybacks, which benefit shareholders, and invest more into the workers whose labor actually creates those profits. So when you see these morons telling you that, oh, well, there's not enough money there. There's enough money there. It's in the pocket of the CEOs. It's in the pockets of the shareholders. It's in the pockets of the investor class. It's not that that money is not in the system. It's not that they really have to raise prices to find that money. It's that they don't want to take less money for themselves. Now, at one time, I'm going to play a little clip from Thomas Frank. You didn't have such an imbalance, and that is when you had this great and thriving middle class, when the CEO's wage was 40 times that of a worker, not 500 times that of a worker. That's where that money is. And sure, they're going to try to raise prices instead of cutting their salaries and cutting their buybacks, but ultimately you're going to hit a wall where nobody can afford a hamburger anymore, and you're going to have to go into that CEO pay. These labor movements are an effort to bring the economy back into balance because it's been out of whack for at least 40 years, increasingly more and more.
Remember surge pricing at Wendy's? That
died on the vine.
Like it's Uber.
Yeah. As the study noted, quote, in 2023 alone, the 10 largest publicly traded fast food companies spent $6.1 billion on share repurchases. To put this in perspective, if we estimate the cost of the minimum wage increase for affected employers using the most generous and unrealistic assumptions, employers' wage costs will increase by a maximum of $4.6 billion annually. So that is $4.6 billion that they can't put into stock buybacks. And guess what? They still have $1.5 billion to put into stock buybacks. Not that they should, but they could still do stock buybacks if they want to. They can afford it. Thanks to an annual 2.2% rise in price markups between 2014 and 2023, major fast food employers like the ones impacted by this new law have built up a nice buffer alongside their billions of dollars in profits. Quote, the top 9 publicly traded fast food companies alone took in nearly $25 billion in profits in 2023, commented Joseph Bryan, executive vice president of SEIU and member of the California Fast Food Council. Quote, and multiple studies have shown that higher wages lead to increased worker retention, recruitment, and job growth. The minimum wage in California has gone up every year since 2015. On the same timeline, fast food restaurants in California added 142,000 jobs. Hang on, I thought they're going to fire people if you raise the wage. Every year, the wage has gone up, and they've added 142,000 jobs. So that doesn't really line up. So let's talk about where your money has really gone, because we covered this the other day. The wealth of the 1% just hit a record $44 trillion. The wealth of the top 1% hit a record $44.6 trillion at the end of the fourth quarter. All of the gains came from stock holdings thanks to an end-of-year rally. Economists say the rising stock market is giving an added boost to consumer spending through what is known as the wealth effect. Now, wait, I'm not, getting into the whole article would be a bit much. You can look it up yourself. But I just want to make it clear because I know, trickle-down Reaganomics aficionados will say, but look, it's stimulating consumer spending. If you actually read the article, it's stimulating consumer spending amongst the upper third of the society. So when you watch people on both the left and the right, look, this is not just conservative media that will lead you to hate workers. When you go to the liberal media, they'll just try to present it more sympathetically while making the same arguments. Yeah, but we want everybody to get a wage. The conservatives will just be like, motherfucker, bootstrap that shit. But they're saying basically the same thing. So I'm not putting all of this on conservative media. But when you watch these things and you say, my God, are these people living in a parallel universe from mine? Yes, they're living in a universe where the consumer spending is booming and they're hitting new levels of wealth because of the stock market. And that is probably not where you live. That is not where most people live. That's where they live. And that's why they have the politics that they have. Now, Thomas Frank, I would say, has written the best series on essentially what's happened to this country and how that has played out in our politics. So it's basically what I would call his trilogy. What's the Matter with Kansas, which we'll get into how a lot of people who consider themselves conservative or right-wing have been tricked into hating the burger flippers because they hate those annoying liberals so much, and they've connected those things. And a lot of people don't understand those annoying liberals hate those union workers more than they hate Republicans. They will chill with Liz Cheney all day and all night. But Bernie Sanders, who would be a very conventional centrist in Europe, was the Antichrist to those people. They hate seeing wages go up for working people, just like any conservative does. His second book was
Stockholm Syndrome and a certain self-righteousness about people who I think really don't want to view themselves as victims. And so they try to convince themselves that, no, this system is actually working the best that it can. Because if I believe that, then I can't think of myself as a victim. But guess what? You are a victim.
You are
a victim.
Right.
Everyone's a victim.
Right. They're
Look what
hoodwinking
that
you.
headline says. The wealth of the top 1% hit a record $44 trillion. The GDP of the United States of America, the GDP of the richest country on earth, is $25 trillion, which means it can be argued that the richest 1% of people in this country literally own this country almost 2 times over. Their net worth, the net worth of the top 1%, is almost twice as much as the GDP of the entire country. The argument begins and ends there. I don't want to hear bullshit about immigrants picking apart chicken carcasses at fucking Tyson plants or fast food workers getting $20 an hour. If you don't see every other problem as downstream of that, the fact that the richest 1% of people own the country 2 times over, then you're a dupe. You're just a fucking dupe.
So let's take a look at what Thomas Frank had to say about this, which I think sums it up very well.
I was born in 1965 in a country that was, America has never had the kind of robust welfare state that you had in France. But we were, in effect, a social democracy, in the sense that there was not a great distance between working people and managers, between blue collar and white collar. That's just who we were. When in the country that I was born into, they called it the middle class democracy. We were the great middle class nation. Everybody had a car. Some people had a Chevy, some people had a Buick, but there wasn't a whole lot of difference between them, and we all lived in the suburbs together. And that was the country I was born into. That country's gone. And that is the great issue of the last 50 years, is the coming of inequality, that the middle class society has come apart. And
all right, so that's part of a clip you can find on YouTube, Why Hillary Lost by Thomas Frank. That's about 10 minutes. It's very, very worth checking out. Also, his next book, which kind of got into what happened to the Democrats, who had at one time been this workers' party, that's called Listen Liberal. And then finally, that was his last book, which according to him, he's out of the game. We'll see. It could be like, these rock stars who retire and come back. But
we come back and tell me to vote Biden.
We'll see. I don't. Well,
he did last time.
Well, yeah. Keaton had a little dust up with Thomas Frank about that when he was on our show. But his last book was The People Know, which was about basically how the establishment and the media have always attacked populist movements with exactly the same tactics and language. You'll be amazed if you read that book at how the things they said about populist movements over 100 years ago.
I've seen that. Yeah.
If you just cross some things out, it sounds like
they invented the word.
It sounds like it came out of the New York Times last week. So End Wokeness here, in their wisdom, decided to post this, not realizing its implications, it seems. California hiked the minimum wage to $20 per hour for fast food workers this week. You'll never guess what happened next. And so he shows the price increase at In-N-Out Burgers, which I must say, and anybody who has followed my adventures in Los Angeles, I love me an In-N-Out Burger when I come out here. And something that really surprised me, because I hadn't had one, I hadn't been out here in 20 years until I came to do the show in January. I was surprised how cheap it still is.
Yeah.
Like, they're very reasonably
why?
priced at In-N-Out Burger.
The guy who owns it, that's why it's not a big franchise. The guy was like I don't want to say a crazy Christian because it's just an honest guy, but he made sure they had the lowest turnover of any fast food place because they paid their workers.
They pay their workers.
They had that price increase is not anything.
Well, that's
nothing.
Well, that's the point. That's the point. So
I would feel fair paying that.
So a double, which I mean, to me, if you're going to go to In-N-Out Burger, go for it.
Yeah.
I always get the double. $5.65. Oh my God, it's gone up by 25 cents. Well, I guess nobody should have a living wage then. The cheeseburger has gone up from $3.95 to $4.10.
Yes, dumb.
15 cents so that people can feed their families. I don't know if I'm
willing.
willing.
Know he was even getting it.
I don't know if I'm willing to throw that in to ensure that people can feed their families. Hamburgers went from $3.50 to $3.60. The horror. From what I could see here, it looks like the fries stayed the same. They didn't increase the fries, and the shakes went up by a nickel from $2.95 to $3. So, wag that he is, Keaton decided to add his own spin on this. Easily the top 10 cell phones in the history of this site. And our friend,
you're putting it up there like, yeah, look what you've done by raising the wage. Now the hamburgers are 25 cents more. If you eat at In-N-Out once a week, which is more than you should probably, but if you go once a week and you spend a quarter more per visit, that's what, times 52 weeks a year, it's costing you an extra $12 a year as a customer of In-N-Out, so that everybody working in that place can live with, I don't even want to say decency. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it out there with gas, $6 a gallon. Like, you're talking about $20 an hour. After taxes, you're talking about what, $32,000 a year? How do you even live in California on $32,000 a year?
Right.
How does End Wokeness not know that wokeness was specifically invented to drive wages down? Like, if you want to end wokeness, raise the wages. That's what it's there for.
Well, that's what's so stupid about this, because, End Wokeness, I follow them. I agree with them on some culture war issues sometimes, not at others. But this is like an image that somebody arguing for increasing wages would post.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know.
How did you not realize that?
This is
Like,
like Papa
and,
John's
and I
stupid.
gotta know, who is the fucking drooling moron who saw this and went, see, 25 cents on the double. Like, who the hell thought that when they saw
Isn't
that?
it more expensive
well,
in
it's
other
just simple
places where they
math.
didn't raise the wage?
What's that?
It's amazing. I mean,
Oh.
I've been fed this my whole life where they say, well, if they're going to raise the minimum wage, all of a sudden you're not going to be able to afford a hamburger.
And then they
Well,
do.
no, because if you're paying someone an extra $4 or $5 an hour, that doesn't mean you raise the price of a hamburger $4 or $5, idiot.
Right.
Because
Right.
you move thousands of hamburgers a day. So
Right.
of course that gets reduced down to
Right.
5, 10,
It's
20
nothing.
cents
But they
per
did
item.
do it.
Everybody's
Yeah.
bucking up a quarter so the people can have a living wage.
Wait, when I was young and they raised it from $3 to whatever is $6, it's amazing to say it's $7 for 20. But they said that, I remember I heard Rush Limbaugh saying that stupidity that you just mentioned. And then they raised it, and guess what? Nothing happened. In the New York, when the comedy clubs, when we were about to have a strike, because clubs didn't want to pay more than food spots or like more than $5 on a
Right.
weeknight.
Right.
We won't be able to stay. Oh, and lo and behold, suddenly there are more clubs than ever.
Exactly.
This is the same scam over and over again.
Exactly, because you put the money. This is why we had such a thriving middle class. That's what Tom Frank is describing in that clip, because people had money.
Yeah.
They had money. Yeah, they didn't make as much as the CEO, but the CEO didn't make more money than God.
These private equity assholes are the ones putting wokeness on you. Why would you want to enrich them?
Exactly.
Like, I don't
exactly.
get it.
This is our friend Nick at RBN.
Me too. They're right. What he said.
I would happily pay 25 cents more for a burger so my neighbors can make a $20 minimum wage and live a better life. What the hell is wrong with you bootlicking Americans? Exactly.
Yeah.
If you are mad at the burger flipper and not the hedge fund guy, if you're not mad at the 1% that have more money 2 times over than the entire country's GDP, if this is who you're mad at, you're a peasant. You're a peasant. Get out of the peasant mentality.
The North remembers.
These people are not your enemies.
He misses he misses the old boot taste. He doesn't like the new.
You can
Liberal
take our
boots.
burgers, but you'll never take our freedom.
So I watch these sad ass things where I'm like, it's like
Better
just what
watch
he
it with
said.
that. That's probably hate speech now.
Yeah. But people that I'm like, oh, this is what I was hoping. Friends of mine that were like right wing, after they saw this bullshit, especially being done to them, what we all did to the Arabs on the. Remember, we all got. they all yearn to be prejudiced against Muslims again. They missed that old. It's not like, oh, they're gonna. If they could do it to them, they could do it to me. Not that.
Right.
I want to go
Right.
back to the old ways where I knew who the bad guy was.
Right. Well, that's it. I mean, that's how the upper class has always divided the worker, right? By playing on prejudices and resentments. But, nobody should be shitting on these workers. You should be following their example to create this kind of strike, this kind of solidarity in industries throughout the country so that we get back to a place where people can live a decent life.
Even if you hate them, you should want them to get a
Well,
wage,
of- well, of
a living
course.
wage to keep them off the goddamn street, which I understand you also don't like. I don't care for that either.
Of course. All right, Misha, to you.
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
So I want to tell you about Field of Greens. Now, you're supposed to get 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables, which I guarantee you I do not. But if you take this, you can get them. Take a scoop of this, you put it in water, you put it in a smoothie. When I put it in water, I like the way it tastes. Now, I say it tastes like iced tea and fresh cut grass, but in the best way possible, fresh cut grass. Like, really does. Like, I even like the smell of it.
It smells great. You can smell it right here.
I
It's
love
wafting.
it. You can smell it. It's going through the room right now. So this is Field of Greens. And if you're not getting your servings of fruit and vegetables, this is a great way to get it. So this is real fruit and vegetables selected. It's not chemicals or whatever. This is actual freeze dried, and you scoop it out just like this. Get a scoop of it, boom, you put it in. And I love the smell of it. Anyway, it's fantastic stuff. It's a great way to get your 5 to 7 servings of fruit and vegetables, which I do not get. But if you take this, you can get it. And when Misha was taking it, she said she had better energy from it. So isn't that fantastic? Now, I quit smoking pot, and it's really messed me up. So I can't tell you anything about how I feel about anything. But it's an organic fruit and vegetable. This was medically chosen to support heart and vital organ health. So there you go. Field of Greens. And I'm going to give you, I got a deal for you. You want 15% off your first order and free rush shipping? Visit fieldofgreens.com. Use promo code Jimmy. That's promo code Jimmy at fieldofgreens.com. Fieldofgreens.com. Promo code Jimmy. 15% off your first order plus free rush shipping. And if you want to get better energy through the day, they claim it helps you sleep better, gives you better hair, helps your digestion, feels better. I'm telling you, I don't get my fruits and vegetables. This is the way to get your fruits and vegetables. Field of Greens, real, organic superfood.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit